This is my online presentation for EDU 709 through Central Michigan University. It's about my final creating project for innovative uses of technology. The first thing I wanted to go over was my thoughts on the sharing project. Um, I initially wanted to use Google Classroom and YouTube. And the reason that I thought about using these two is because our school is a Google sponsored school. And with Google Classroom, it's an all-in-one resource. It's connected to their email, to their Google Docs. So no matter where they are, they always have access to that on the cloud. Plus, with Google Classroom, the learning management system is already in place. And there are a few teachers in our school district, and specifically in the middle school building, that are starting to use Google Classroom. So the students have a little bit of familiarity with it, and it's not going to be something brand new that's thrown at them. When it comes to YouTube, it's a lot of the same ideas and concepts too, and I just like how there's multiple resources. If you want to learn how to do anything, the first place that we go now is we search YouTube. Pretty much everybody uses the same thing. If you want to learn how to do anything or find anything, YouTube is the easiest accessible place that you can go. For my creating project, I actually switched gears a little bit and I went to Google Classroom and Google Blogs instead of YouTube. I thought overall, with what I'm trying to do for my students, I could get more and learn more out of Google Blogs rather than using YouTube. So my rationale behind it was when my students leave my 7th grade science classroom, there were some things that I wanted to make sure that they had in their back pocket for the next level and ultimately for high school and beyond. I wanted to make sure they had a strong internet background, using technology. Do they understand how to troubleshoot, or are they always looking for somebody else to fix the problem? I want them to be able to learn to solve those problems by themselves. Another thing is I wanted a clear understanding of multiple formats of writing. That's one thing the English teacher and I have always been good at going back and forth with, is there's different styles. If I'm doing something for a science class, I'm not going to write the same as I am for an English class. If I'm writing something in literature, it's going to be very descriptive, a use of a lot of flourishing words, whereas scientific writing is just the facts, the basics. Get to the point, be descriptive, but I don't need to make sure I have an independent clause and complete sentences and using a semicolon correctly. It's not, there's a distinct difference, and that's one of the goals that I try to do from the beginning of the year to the end. The next rationale is I wanted to be able to see growth from the beginning of the school year and beyond. And you'll see that when I get to my creating project. This use of Google Blogs should really be able to show the students how much their scientific writing and ability to create a lab has grown from the beginning of 7th grade till the end. And ultimately, my goal is to have it start in 6th grade and go to 8th grade, so all of middle school. I wanted more collaboration among students. Right now, the students have a lab notebook, but it's done by hand and nobody else sees it except for them. It's only for their eyes. And when we talk about the scientific world, there's always collaboration among some point. So if I'm using Google Blogs, my goal is to have each person comment on 2 other people's blogs as well. And that leads on to higher analytical thinking skills. If I have a student or a group of students whose lab didn't turn out exactly like it should have, if we're using just a paper lab notebook, they're never possibly going to understand why it didn't work out. Versus a blog, and they have to go and comment on other people's blogs, they can see how other groups' labs actually turned out and be able, hopefully, to decipher, well, this is what went wrong and this is what I should have done differently, which leads into the conclusion of their lab anyway. The tools that not only my students but I used as well for my creating project were Google Classroom and Blogs, Socrative, Screencast-O-Matic, which I'm using right now, YouTube, Google Docs, and iPads. If you are a school that lets students bring their own devices instead of iPads, you could just punch in there, bring your own device. For my first lesson in the creating project, I just did an introductory tutorial using Screencast-O-Matic to demonstrate Google Classroom and Google Blogs, excuse me. So it's just a 10-11 minute video. This is a screencast to help you guys understand how to go into your Google Classroom, create a blog for your scientific method, and how to submit it. So the first thing that I'd like you guys to do is log into your Google Classroom. This is just an example for one of the classes I'm creating. You're going to go to the create blog for the scientific method. So basically all it is, I know that was a screencast within a screencast, but it's just an introduction for them. They watch this video, they learn how to access it from Google Classroom, and how to get started on their Google blog. They're not actually creating anything yet, they're just getting everything set up and understanding where to go and when to go there. So next, the students will learn how to create their own blog to use as a lab notebook following the scientific method. I have a template of a blog I'm going to show in a little bit, and that's what students are going to use to help them create their blogs and use that as a template for their scientific method. We're very fortunate to have some very good computers teachers in our building, so by the time they reach me in 7th grade, virtually all students have already learned how to make a blog and post. It's very minimal, but because it's linked in with their Gmail, it's something that's we're hoping to get to be second nature with them. So once they're done submitting their blogs and everything, they will submit their link into Google Classroom. So we're just trying to give them an introduction here on how to submit it, where to access it, things like that. And the last thing I did was, as an assessment, students will take an online quiz via Socrative. So this quiz is just on the scientific method, the different steps, the order, descriptions of the different steps, and then it also includes information on things they would have learned in the video. So basically I'm quizzing them on, did they watch the video or did they just say they did and not at all. So they have to they've had to have watched the video in order to get all the questions right on this quiz. So then we go on to lesson number 2, the flipped lab idea. This is your pre-lab for the testing waters lab. Here you see all the materials that we should need for the lab. Let's talk about each one. So what I'm doing here is I want to start using digital pre-labs, kind of like a flipped classroom, but just for the lab part. And the reason I want to do it is because I think it'll save us time in class. I've been giving the students time in class to write out their labs, but they've just been rewriting from something in the book. Here they have to watch the video, they have to analyze the information and decide for themselves what part of this is important and what do I need to make sure to write down. I also think it will allow students to come prepared for labs. They've seen me demonstrate how to do it and what we're going through, so I should hopefully eliminate some of those questions where students are unsure. Maybe they read the pre-lab and wrote it in their lab notebook, they just weren't quite sure how to interpret it. Students already understand the procedure, that's one of the biggest parts. And then using the iPads, or again, a bring your own device, I'd like them to have their iPads with them so they can take pictures and not drawings of their labs. I don't know if any of you teach middle school. Some students are very good artists, but most will get away with doing the minimum amount possible. And if you're doing a lab on growing bacteria and you want to see the growth, if students are drawing it, it's probably not going to be as accurate as it could be. And in reality, if we are scientists, we're probably not going to draw it out. We're probably going to be taking pictures. So I'm trying to get them into that realm a bit, more of the scientific realm. So here's just an opening picture of the pre-lab I made. I go through all the materials that they'll need. I talk about what they might need for a hypothesis, their problem, and then I go through the procedure for them. I also include a data table so they have an idea of what their data table should look like and what they're looking for when it comes to measuring things. So the next part that we have, students will create a blog of each lab using a template. So all my students have to do is go to mrspalmascience.blogspot.com, and it's coming up here. And I've already given them a template. So this is an example. You can follow the same format using Roman numerals. If you have any problems formatting, I'm telling them here to write it in Google Docs. This is something that's already included in that introductory video. So what they'll do is they'll just copy and paste all this information here, problem through conclusion, put it in their own blog, make sure to fill out all their own information, and the only things that they have to have done are Roman numerals 1 through 4. The observation and conclusion won't be done until they're actually doing the lab and once they've completed the lab. So they'll take that template and they'll record the whole lab. They'll use pictures and charts and put all that in their blog. And once they're done, they're going to submit their completed lab with a link via Google Classroom. I'm creating one place for all the labs. The reason that I want to use the labs and use the blogs, is I want the students to be able to save this for years to come. I want them to be able to see their growth from 6th grade to 8th grade and see, wow, I really am starting to analyze things more, or I am getting more descriptive. I also think it's extremely important that they have the ability to comment on other students' labs. Especially if we're all doing the same one, they're not going to all get the same results. That's just how science goes. There's always those factors that you can't control. And we've never really given them the opportunity to understand or see or look at other students' labs. So this is a chance for them to see and read through somebody else's lab. And maybe they'll get more ideas for the next time they might do it. So again, just as a capstone, my goals overall, I want the students to have better record keeping, because there are quite a few students that come and they don't have their lab done, or they lost it, or it's in a separate notebook instead of the lab notebook. I'm trying to work on organizational skills. If the labs are in a blog form, no matter where they are, they should have access to that. As long as they know how to get into their email, which they all do, they'll be able to have their lab. And then I want a proof of growth, not only for the students, but for me too. This is a chance to prove that they are learning more, that my students are understanding the scientific method more than they were before. And I can track it not only from the beginning of the year to the end, but I can track it too from year to year and see how those students are doing. My goal is to start with this next year with my 7th grade science students, and hopefully the 6th and 8th grade science teachers will also get on board, and we'll see where it goes from there. I'd love to see if this is something that we can get the high school to get on board with, but one step at a time. So thank you for listening to my 15-minute long video on my capstone project. I'm very excited. This is one of my favorite things out of all the classes we've had so far, and I cannot wait to implement it for this next lab and fully for next year. So thank you for watching.